Hey guys, it's Ashley Francis with Blue Sage Counseling and Wellness, and today we are going to be talking about 10 ways to deal with toxic family members over the holidays. This is a really big topic that inevitably comes up every single year, and for good reason. It is difficult being around certain family members for various reasons. So I wanted to make a quick video and just provide some of my top 10 tips to be able to deal with toxic and dysfunctional family members. So let's go ahead and hop into it. Okay, so the first one is to adjust your attitude. I think this is the first step. It's where we start when it comes to planning for any sort of family gathering over the holidays. Being able to check in with yourself at first and checking, what is my attitude towards going? Likely it's pretty negative. You're feeling some dread, you don't want to go, you've got a pit in your stomach, you're making up excuses not to go. So the first thing is to just kind of check in with that and just notice that that's the way that you're feeling. Notice where you feel it in your body. Just get really attuned to those negative feelings to be able to just start getting to know them and getting comfortable with the fact that they're there, as opposed to simply ignoring them and trying to trudge through them. Sometimes that can work, but oftentimes it either doesn't work or there's some backlash afterwards. So really checking in and checking on your attitude. And also part of this process, it helps us to prepare ahead of time. So we want to think about all of the possibilities that could happen based on years past and based on knowing personalities of various family members. Just checking in, maybe preparing, doing some yoga or listening to some calming music, doing some journaling, just kind of preparing your nervous system for a potentially difficult situation. So the preparation starts before you go. That's actually step one. And you also want to try and focus on the positive. So while you're engaging in those nervous system downgrading types of activities, and this could also be talking to a friend or your therapist, you want to focus on what are the positives that can come out of this. One of the biggest things that I like to focus on is the fact that this is an opportunity for you to do things maybe differently than you ever have. Maybe you struggled with family gatherings for years and it's just never gone well. Well, you can utilize some of these tips and you actually have a chance of things not going so poorly, and you can be more optimistic about future gatherings as well. The second step is to have realistic expectations. Once again, you know your family members, you know their personalities, you know their opinions, they're likely not going anywhere. A leopard oftentimes doesn't change its spots. So go into it anticipating that this is likely going to be the case. So what we want to do is, this is a two-step process. First, we want to acknowledge that you wish things were different. It's okay to say that. You really wish that mom wasn't on your case about your weight, or you really wish that your auntie would get off your back about getting married. These things are not going to go anywhere. So just simply acknowledging that you simply wish that things were different is a good first step. And then the second step is to prepare to accept them as they behave already as they are. Once again, their thoughts, their feelings, their actions have been formed by a long line of their own history. There's a lot of things that go into why they think, feel, and act the way that they do, just as it is the case for you. So simply taking that into account, that they are who they are, just getting it straight in your head that this is the reality and this is what the expectations really truly are, can go a long way. So step number 3 is keeping potentially triggering topics off limits. Of course, the first go-tos are politics and religion, right? Those two topics are just no-win situations, at least in my opinion. People are not going to change their opinion, especially on these types of topics. So if at all possible, try to avoid those type of topics. If they do come up, I should say when they come up, because inevitably they do come up, especially right now, we're in a very difficult political climate. One of the best things to do is to give yourself permission to excuse yourself from the conversation. You actually don't need to sit there and listen to it. You don't need to sit there and take it. So something that I do when I get triggered in those types of situations is simply just to remain silent. I let the person talk. I try to come from a curious stance. I try to understand, okay, even though I don't agree with that, and even though you're making my blood boil as you say these things right now, I don't have to agree with you. Those are your opinions, and you're entitled to have those opinions. And if you can stay over there and I can stay over here, and we can still love one another and accept for one another for our differences, then we're doing a good job. Now, I understand that sometimes this is easier said than done. Sometimes opinions are outlandish. They can be abrasive. They can be highly offensive. So this is an act of empathy. It is a process. If you're having trouble with it now, or you continue to have trouble with it, know that that's okay. And this is a continuous process that really needs perpetual attention. So just take your time with it and go easy on yourself. Okay, so the next thing is to set secure boundaries. Once again, this is something that you want to do before you actually go for the family gathering. The exercise that I like to have clients do is visualization. You've likely been to the family gatherings, you've been to the house that you're likely going to go to, you know the people that are going to be there, you know the setup, typically speaking. So go ahead and anticipate that and begin to close your eyes, tap into that environment and see it before you. See you going through the motions, see your family members going through the motions, and actually visualize how this is going to go. That way, you can anticipate what's likely going to happen and you can make a plan. So for instance, you may need to check in with yourself and you realize that I can only do an hour of this before I'm burning out and I need to just get away. So go ahead and make the plan of spending an hour with family members and then taking a 15-minute break or whatever it is that works for you and that is most realistic. But the point is to see it very vividly so that you can anticipate exactly what you want to do. You might need to get away to call a friend. You might need to do some journaling, maybe take a walk or a drive. Maybe you need to get away completely. Have those things in your back pocket and ready to go when you need to pull upon them. And the next thing is that the only thing that you can control is your reaction. I think this is the biggest one. By far, this is the biggest one. I always like to tell clients, any attempt that you make to control other people, it actually puts you under their control. I'm going to say that again. Any attempt that you try to control other people actually puts you under their control. You're mixing what is in your control with what is in their control. All of this can become very confusing and very overwhelming. But when we separate and try not to take their thoughts, feelings, and actions personally, we're a lot better off. And we're actually in a better position to be able to empathize as well. You also want to practice saying, let's not get into this right now. You can make definitive statements. My suggestion is to keep things short, sweet, and concise. You don't want to get into a back and forth. So the more that you can be definitive and clear and direct with what you are deciding to do, the better it's going to be. Let's not get into this right now. I'm choosing to walk away. I'd rather not talk about this right now. Some variation of that is okay. And you feel what you feel and you know what you know. So why not give the other family member, the toxic one, the benefit of the doubt as well? You also want to accept full responsibility for your healing. So this is more of an overarching thing. This is not something that's necessarily going on during this visit, but you do want to remind yourself that I'm only accepting of what I'm responsible for, which are my drawbacks, my blind spots, the things that I need to work on. So long as I'm focusing on those things, I automatically focus less on what it is that they need to do. I need to focus on me. Now, this doesn't mean that you need to shoulder the blame completely. It doesn't mean that it's all your fault, but rather it helps to divide and put that line down the middle as far as what you're responsible for and what they're actually responsible for. The next one is kind of a gimme. It is to not drink too much. So this seems straightforward, but the point that I want to make here is that even when you're having a jovial time and everyone is drinking, if it's in your family culture to drink, You're likely to have a good time, but just as soon as somebody pulls out one of those triggering comments, it just leaves us vulnerable. It leaves us vulnerable to get offended or be more sensitive than we normally would. Maybe we're going to say something that we normally would be able to keep under wraps and have a filter for. So you just want to monitor that. And maybe it might be a better option to not drink at all if you're around especially triggering family members. The next one is to get active. The more that you can engage in healthy distractions during this time, the better. So you want to maybe suggest playing some games, games that require concentration or physical activity. They may be more likely to evoke laughter, which can be a great medicine. So doing things that get you out of your head, get the other person out of their head, and allow you guys to possibly work together. Now, yes, there's the possibility that this could backfire, so you want to use your best judgment on this. But if you feel like it's something that's appropriate and could work out in terms of being a healthy distraction, go for it. So the next one is to practice gratitude. I would say that the best time to do this is before, during, and even after, but especially during, when it is the most difficult time to do that. So I suggest maybe getting away for a little while. You feel like you've been overstimulated, you've been offended about 50 times, you've only been there for an hour. Step outside, and you may even want to have a list written down of all of the things that you're thankful for. Keep it in your pocket, bring it out when you need to refer to it, and just reflect on your life back home, if it's good, if it's enriched and full. You want to reflect on your friends, your job, maybe your neighborhood, your community, your hobbies, things that you like about yourself, your strengths. Just focusing on anything positive at all is an automatic switch in the brain, and it gets you right out of that negative line of thinking. And once again, you can bring it back to yourself, which are the things that you have control of, and that's it. Okay, so the next one is to practice tolerance. This is a particularly tricky one, again, especially with highly offensive family members. So the point here is to do your best. When we talk about tolerance, we're really talking about empathy. You're trying to put yourself in the other person's shoes. Now, keep in mind that the distinction here is that when you put yourself in the other person's shoes, it doesn't mean that you necessarily need to agree with them. In fact, you probably don't agree with them, and that's okay. That's not the point. But if you can understand where they're coming from, maybe perhaps how other experiences have shaped, informed their opinions, and influenced the way that they are acting, it helps us to take a breath and be a little bit more accepting of them. Now, keep in mind, it doesn't necessarily mean that what they're saying or what they're doing is okay. You don't have to be approving of it, but you simply can validate, okay, I can understand where this is coming from. I can see why you're doing that, and automatically helps to reduce the stress level, even if it's just a little bit. Also, keep in mind that we all have flaws. We all have negative things about us. We all do things that are irritating as well. So if that's the case, then maybe we do need to give other people the benefit of the doubt, because we all have flaws. And the final tip is to bring a happy reminder. So there again, it's kind of in line with having that list of gratitude items. If you have a trinket that you can keep in your pocket, maybe it's a necklace or a family photograph, anything that reminds you of home, that brings you comfort, you might want to pack that and bring it with you. Taking a hot bath, listening to soft music, there again, taking a walk, all of these are good things. If you can do yoga, that's also a really good thing. And being able to stick to the family members that you do enjoy, so that your association with these family gatherings can change, and it starts to be, if at anything, it can at least be neutral if it's not becoming more positive. So one of the best ways to do that is to have a little trinket, something that is a happiness reminder for you. I actually have some bonus suggestions as well. Even though these tips can be highly effective and they can go a long way, there are just still some exceptions. There are still family situations that are just outlandish, over the top, highly offensive. You're going to get triggered no matter what. So I want to provide an alternative to these types of situations. And these practices are called being the participant observer, and they're actually games that you can play. So with these games, The idea is that you're doing it with a group of friends, but if you don't have a group of friends to rely on, that's okay. You can do it with your spouse or maybe just one friend, but you could also do it yourself. So keep in mind there's different variations of this. So the idea is that there's 3 types of games. You are to meet with your friends before the family gathering to make a plan, and then you participate in the game, and then when you come back, you have a follow-up gathering so that you can determine the winner and determine how everything went. So once again, you can do this by yourself. It's a little bit more challenging, but it still can be done, because the whole purpose of doing the participant observer type of activity is to remove you from the situation so that you're actually on the outside looking in at your family dynamic. Let's give some examples to this. One of which is Queen for a Day. So you get together with your friends, you talk about the potential dysfunctional patterns and situations that are likely to come up, and then you go to the family gathering and you witness this. You sit back and you watch it, you kind of take mental notes, you could even take physical notes if you wanted to. And then the idea is that you reconvene with your friends. You each take turns telling your story about the dysfunctional patterns and actions that you witnessed, and then you vote, and whoever has the most horrendous story wins, and the friends buy that friend lunch. It's just a different way of doing it, just a different way of conceptualizing how to get through these really difficult times. And then the second one is Comedy Club. So the idea here is that you're not looking to your family members for a sense of love and understanding. You may not have that at all in your family. So rather you're taking the standpoint of, I'm observing to gather comedic material. So there again, you're convening with your friends, and then during the family gathering, you're taking mental notes or physical notes of all of the things that are just so awful that they're funny. You know, those types of situations, like I can't believe this is happening. This is real life right now. And you want to have an audience. You want to tell other people about it. So those are the types of things that you want to take note of. And then you go back and share those things with your friends. And then you could also do the free lunch if you want to, but really the whole idea of this type of game is it adds some lightheartedness and some humor to the situation, which automatically starts to diffuse some of the stress, and it makes it easier to deal with. The last type of game is dysfunctional family bingo. This is a fun one. So you can either hand make these bingo cards or you can buy some blank ones. Get together with your friends, and you identify some of the potential dysfunctional patterns, actions, or phrases that are likely to come up. You write them on your bingo slots. While you're at the family gathering, when you notice that it happens, you mark off when it happens, and then you reconvene with your friends, and whoever has the most tally marks, the most slots marked off, is the winner. So just some out of the box little crazy things to do to help with these very challenging and difficult situations. I think the most important thing to keep in mind is that it is all about having the right attitude, having a good solid plan, having an exit strategy, and being able to debrief afterwards as well. So whether that be with your friends or with a therapist, if you don't have a support system at all, that's one of the things that's suggested. Some other things, just an added tip, I know I keep going here, but one of the biggest questions that I get asked is, how do I respond? What are some actual responses that I can give? An example would be if your mother is commenting on your weight. So an appropriate response could be that, you know what, weight is important to me too, and I have a plan that I'm working myself. End of discussion. There again, short, concise, sweet, to the point, and you can actually choose to end the conversation. You can say, I don't want to talk about this anymore. You can simply walk away. Just being able to really keep to that point. I'd rather not talk about this. I appreciate your concern for me, but it's a rather sensitive subject and I'd rather not talk about it. But keeping in mind that one of the best ways to diffuse conflict is to actually agree with the person. You know what? Weight is a really important issue. You're not necessarily agreeing with the criticism, but you're agreeing with the point that they're trying to make. Yeah, it's important to me too. And you know what? I'm doing it my own way. And thanks for your concern. I appreciate it. If you're not able to muster that, then at the very least, being able to say, thanks for sharing. Something just as simple as that. Thank you for the feedback. Thanks for the suggestion. Then once again, it doesn't mean you have to agree with what they have said, but you simply are giving a response that is neutral and you're not playing into their drama. Okay, there you have it. There are our, we say top 10, but there's tons of other tips in there too of dealing with toxic and dysfunctional family members during the holidays. Please let me know what you think about these suggestions in the comment section below. Give this video a thumbs up and also subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more videos like this. Take care.